Maximum alert in Formula One. The most feared car on the grid is now an enigma. The Red Bull RB21, successor to Max Verstappen's unbeatable car, has collapsed alarmingly. What's going on inside the most dominant team of recent years? Yuki Tsunoda in this tale of chaos and despair. The 2025 season kicked off with an unexpected blow for Red Bull Racing. What was supposed to be another display of dominance with the RB21 ended up turning into a nightmare in the middle of the Bahraini desert. The weekend began with confusing signs from practice. The car wasn't responding. The simulation data didn't match the actual performance on track. But the worst came on Sunday. Max Verstappen, the four-time world champion and regular front-row protagonist, was completely off the pace. Yuki Tsunoda, meanwhile, barely managed to scrape together any points. What was experienced in the paddock was more than frustration. It was bewilderment. Immediately after the race, an emergency meeting was held in the team hospitality area. Christian Horner, Helmut Marko, Pierre Watch, and Paul Monahan locked themselves away to analyze what had just happened. Marko's expression spoke volumes. In front of the media, he bluntly declared, "Our car is simply not balanced. We don't know what's wrong with it." Such statements are rare in Formula One, and even more so coming from a team like Red Bull, accustomed to absolute control over every technical detail. But what was most disturbing was Verstappen's attitude. In his post-race remarks, he didn't just express disappointment, he expressed uncertainty. He stated that everything had gone wrong from tire management to the car's braking response, and when asked if they knew how to fix it, he replied, "If we know where to find it, yes," and then added, "You have to ask them. I don't know." These words, spoken by a driver who always exudes technical confidence, reveal a profound crisis. It's no longer a bad race, but a structural problem that threatens to destabilize the entire RB21 project. Internally, alarm bells went off. What seemed like a small initial slippage could be just the tip of the iceberg. Without a clear short-term solution, and with rivals like McLaren, Mercedes, and Ferrari showing significant progress, Red Bull faces a completely unexpected start to the season. The Bahrain Grand Prix didn't just leave Red Bull without a podium finish. It exposed a vulnerability we haven't seen for years. And the feeling within the paddock is that this time, the problems can't be solved with a simple aerodynamic update. The crisis is deeper, and the season is just beginning. What seemed like a minor preseason mishap ended up revealing a series of underlying technical failures that seriously compromised the RB21 project. Red Bull has created a car that, in Verstappen's own words, is difficult to understand, unpredictable, and extremely difficult to push to the limit. One of the main problems identified is the braking system. Verstappen was clear, there's no pedal feel. This not only affects his confidence when attacking corners, but also increases the risk of lockup, both on the front and rear axles. This failure alone compromises a fast lap, but in a race it becomes even more detrimental because it forces tire conservation and affects the entire strategy. Added to this is another structural problem: tire overheating. The RB21 suffers from excessive temperature increases, especially on the front wheels. This makes the tire's operating window extremely narrow. The result is a sudden loss of grip, especially during braking and traction. This erratic behavior makes the car unpredictable and, in the words of several paddock engineers, is one of the most difficult issues to resolve without redesigning key components. Another critical point is aerodynamic balance. Red Bull decided to abandon the centralized cooling system that was so successful in 2024 and return to a more traditional approach. This change has required a redesign of the car's internal flow and has had negative consequences for the RB21's overall balance. The airflow is unstable, the car loads unevenly in fast corners, and in slow corners it loses traction due to the instability of the rear end. Adrian Newey's absence from the development of this car is becoming increasingly noticeable. With his departure to Aston Martin, the team has lost the figure capable of compensating for structural weaknesses with creative solutions. Paul Monahan, now head of technical matters, acknowledges that they need to find performance at every corner to get closer to the leaders. But the numbers don't lie. Since mid-2024, Red Bull has entered a downward spiral that hasn't stopped. In the final 14 Grands Prix of last season, Verstappen only won 2 races. He had just swept the first 10. This drop in performance wasn't temporary. It was a sign that something was breaking in the team's technical structure. And the RB21 seems to confirm that trend. Furthermore, the rigidity of the new design has created an extremely narrow operating window. If conditions aren't perfect, the car simply doesn't perform. Horner and Marko have made it clear. The immediate goal isn't to add downforce, but to widen that window to gain room for maneuver on thermally demanding circuits like Bahrain, Jeddah, or China. In short, the RB21 is a complex, unstable, and poorly adaptable car. A car that can perform under ideal conditions, but collapses at the slightest deviation. And in Formula One, consistency is everything. Mistakes are unforgivable. And right now, Red Bull is playing at the limit, with no technical guarantees and with an aerodynamic base that has yet to achieve the expected leap. The RB21 crisis isn't just unfolding on the track. Within Red Bull, differences in technical criteria have ignited growing tension between the team's key figures. On one side is team principal Christian Horner, pushing for a solution that would restore stability to the car, even if it means sacrificing some of its peak performance. On the other hand, Pierre Wache, the technical director, maintains an uncompromising stance. Pure performance cannot be negotiable, even if it makes the car more difficult to drive. This divergence is much more than a simple technical disagreement. It's a philosophical struggle within the team. Horner has been clear in his statements. Last year's RB20 already developed too narrow an operating window after an update introduced at Imola, and the RB21 inherited that weakness. The goal for 2025, according to him, should have been to widen that window, to make a more versatile car, capable of performing well on different types of circuits and temperatures. But Wache has a different view. In his view, the car should be designed to be the fastest when it's at its peak. Everything else is secondary. For him, compromising that philosophy in favor of simpler driving is diluting Red Bull's technical identity. This stance has generated direct friction with Horner and has also bothered Helmut Marko, who recently stated that the team is going around in circles and needs urgent structural changes. This tension is further intensified by the absence of a key figure who used to serve as a point of balance, Adrian Newey. While with the team, Newey had the authority and experience to make decisions that combined performance with handling. Without him, the differences between Wache's aggressive approach and Horner's pragmatic concern have become more visible and more difficult to resolve. Furthermore, the external context increases the pressure. McLaren, Mercedes, and Ferrari are progressing rapidly, and any sign of internal division is exploited by rivals as a sign of weakness. Red Bull, which for years operated with almost military cohesion, is now showing cracks. The lack of clarity regarding the technical direction of the project threatens to leave the team adrift. Even driver management has been affected by this tension. The decision to promote Yuki Tsunoda and leave Liam Lawson out was made in a tense atmosphere, and some interpret it as a desperate measure to please Honda in the midst of a broader crisis. Max Verstappen, although he has remained professional, has already expressed his discomfort with recent decisions that affect the team's internal stability. Ultimately, the tension within Red Bull isn't just the result of a car that doesn't work. It's the manifestation of an internal struggle to define the team's future amid a technical storm. And if that division isn't resolved soon, the RB21's downfall could be just the beginning of a much deeper crisis. The race at Imola, to be held on May 18th, has become a crucial turning point for Red Bull Racing. After a start to the season marked by frustration and technical uncertainty, the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix appears to be the last bastion of hope for the Austrian team. At this event, Red Bull has outlined its major commitment, a package of updates that could define the immediate future of the 2025 season. The team has been working against the clock to improve the RB21 and solve the fundamental problems that have been exposed in the first few races. The floor design, which will be one of the key modifications, is one of the areas where it hopes to find answers to the balance and stability issues that have hampered the car's performance. Red Bull, aware of the seriousness of the situation, is not only looking for a faster car, but one that is more predictable with a wider operating window to adapt to diverse track conditions. The time factor plays a crucial role. Imola represents the last realistic deadline before the season spirals completely out of control for Red Bull. If the updates don't yield immediate results, the team could find itself trapped in a spiral of technical despair and loss of confidence, both internally and externally. The pressure on the engineers and design staff is monumental, as this is an opportunity to demonstrate that the team still has the capacity to innovate and adapt quickly, as it has in the past. In addition to the improvements to the car's design, the other big unknown will be the drivers' ability to adapt their driving styles to the RB21's new behavior. Verstappen, who has been the only driver able to extract any performance from the flawed car, will have to adapt again to the car's new characteristics. If the car improves, his ability to maximize that performance will be critical to Red Bull's return to competitiveness. On the other hand, Yuki Tsunoda, who has been struggling to adapt to the car's unpredictable behavior, faces an even bigger challenge, proving he can take advantage of the updates and showing he has the skills to compete alongside Verstappen. The Imola Grand Prix will be a test for both the car and the team. A positive result could put Red Bull back in the championship fight, while a failure could mark the beginning of an even bigger crisis of confidence. The team has already indicated that the triple header of Japan, Bahrain, and Jeddah, where they focused on damage limitation, is merely an interlude before the updates arrive at Imola. Expectations are high and the margin for error is almost non-existent. If the improvements don't deliver immediate results, Red Bull will have to review its strategy for the rest of the season. The competition is stronger than ever, and the gap with McLaren, Ferrari, and Mercedes could widen further if effective solutions are not implemented. Red Bull's engineers and management are aware that this is a decisive turning point, not only for the 2025 season, but also for the team's longevity in Formula One. Thus, the pressure on the Milton Keynes team is higher than ever. Imola will be the stage where Red Bull can either revive its campaign or face a technical crisis of major proportions. The fate of the RB21 and possibly the championship could depend on the effectiveness of the updates that will be introduced at that Grand Prix. The situation facing Red Bull Racing in the 2025 season represents a turning point in its recent history. After years of absolute dominance, built on an impeccable technical philosophy, firm management, and a stable structure, the team finds itself in uncharted territory. A technical crisis, internal friction, tactical uncertainty, and external pressure from all fronts. The RB21 is not simply a failed car. It is the result of a series of decisions that have accumulated unresolved tensions. From the operational constraints inherited from the RB20, to the risky technical gamble without Newey, to the differences between Watch and Horner, everything has added up to create a perfect storm. And the most alarming thing is that the storm is still far from dissipating. Imola appears on the horizon as the great hope. But it's not a magic bullet. The improvements to come will only have an impact if they address the fundamentals that are failing: balance, reliability, and versatility. And even then, Red Bull will continue to be against the clock. Every race that passes without a solid performance is an opportunity that slips away. Every point lost can make all the difference in a championship that now looks more open than ever. This is where a theory is beginning to gain traction within the paddock. Red Bull could be facing a change of cycle. Not simply a bad run, but the end of an era. The combination of technical errors, strategic conflicts, and the increasing competitiveness of its rivals may be marking the beginning of a new configuration in the Formula One elite. McLaren has made an impressive leap in quality. Ferrari, with a strong duo and a much more complete car, is no longer the erratic team of past seasons. Mercedes, although with ups and downs, still has the structure to return to the front at any moment. Red Bull, for the first time in years, is leading neither in innovation, nor in results, nor in internal confidence. And to all this we must add the human factor. Verstappen is committed, but he is not immune to frustration. If the team doesn't react in time, the emotional toll can have unexpected consequences. Even more so if the team fails to align its technical and strategic visions before the European leg of the season. So, is this the beginning of the end for Red Bull? Or are we simply facing a critical test that will ultimately strengthen its structure to come back even stronger? The answers will begin to arrive at Imola. But what is already clear is that the aura of invincibility that surrounded the team has disappeared. And in a sport as ruthless as Formula One, the first sign of weakness can be the beginning of an unstoppable decline.